Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar on granularity. Is it a help or hindrance to complex rebate deals? I'm Lucy and I'm your host for today, and I've also got Phil with me. Phil, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a business analyst at Enable, so I work with our product managers in improving DealTrack, creating new features for DealTrack and getting those rolled out.
That's great. And what do you think of our new studio?
It's wonderful. It's nice to have a change in scenery.
Absolutely. So these webinars that we're doing are going to run on a monthly basis. We've already done a couple that are back on our website. You can go back, have a look, refresh your memory and see what other topics we've covered. So as I said, today's webinar is on granularity and those complex rebate deals. So Phil, are you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Great stuff. So now we're going to look at today's agenda before we get started. So we're going to cover topics such as what are complex deals, the challenges and the benefits associated with those complex deals. Then we're going to look at business priorities and granularity. What is granularity? How can having granular data help benefit you, and the implications of having non-granular data? And then we're going to look at any considerations for the future in relation to granularity.
Brilliant.
So Phil, let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we've got a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If you've got any questions, please ask them throughout the webinar and hopefully we'll get them answered for you.
I'd love to answer your questions.
So Phil, what do we mean by complex rebate deals?
So this is anything over your typical simple deal. And so a common deal that we see is sort of a guaranteed percentage back on the turnover generated from a single product line. That would be a standard deal, and then the complex deal is anything over and above that. So you're really looking to maximise revenue through alternative means other than just guaranteed rebates.
And what kind of complex rebate deals do we see?
So the main one we see is growth incentives for your key products. And so this is where you select some of your key products. You say we really want to grow these with some of our customers, and you say let's take last year's sales and say at certain growth points over the year, you can start giving monetary amounts back to them. And so say £100,000 for 4% over the baseline is something that we see quite often, for example. So they're quite bread and butter. You go into some more interesting ones. So central distribution rebates is one of my favourites. So this is where you, rather than having delivered to multiple branches, you deliver to a central depot, and you reward your customer for selecting delivery types that help you to make your delivery network more efficient and speed up delivery as well. And so you still retain the flexibility of delivering to the branch, but you just offer a certain better rebate for delivering to the central depot and allow your customer to then do the final delivery down to the branch level. And we know one of our clients has actually paid for their delivery network through the savings they've made through these types of rebate deals. So there's lots of money to be made there.
That's great stuff. And the mechanisms associated with those deals, what kind of things do you see?
So these are all examples of incentive deals where normally they have a lot of different tiers or different levels. And so you're giving an amount back, whether that's fixed or a percentage back, when these certain targets have been hit. And the more you spend, the higher up the targets you go, and the more the rate of rebate increases as you go up those tiers. And we see different mechanisms for both how rebate is earned and how much is paid at the end of the deal as well. And these are typically based on the value of transactions or the volume of transactions, or going back to the previous example, the growth from the previous period, so year-on-year sales, for example.
Okay, Phil, so what are the challenges with having those complex rebate deals?
So the main one is just added overhead in terms of calculation. So this is over and above typically what spreadsheets can handle. And so we're looking at granular data at a very finer point. So you've got more data, especially over longer periods of time. So if you're looking at this data over a year, say, you're just getting completely swamped. Additionally, you've got difficulty in actually, when you're agreeing these deals, making it clear what is part of the deal, what's excluded from the deal. You don't want to, for example, be paying rebates twice on a single product. So you need to make sure that if there is a rebate that's part of another deal, that you're deducting that turnover from the eligible turnover from this deal, for example. But then also it needs to be clear. One of the issues that our clients have are representing product lines or product categories. Both parties want to represent it using their own structures and their own categories, but obviously it's very difficult to agree on a single structure for which is the basis of the deal. And so either you need to compromise, or one partner will need to map their categories into the categories used by their business partner.
So there's a lot of complexities and a lot of challenges around those deals, but yet organisations still have them, so there must be some benefit as well. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's just about freeing from the everyday rebate deals that we see. There's more creativity here, there's more flexibility. We're all about driving mutual growth through these deals, so it's about a mutually beneficial position for both parties. Obviously, suppliers want more guarantee that their customers are going to choose them for the products that they stock, and your customers want a bit more reassurance that they're getting the best deal that they can.
Yeah, so first and foremost, it'll always be a business priority to manage and execute those complex deals well. But if you're confident that you're doing that well, then we'll talk about granularity and how granularity can help with those complex deals. So Phil, what do we mean by granularity?
So this is really about going down to the attribute level of your turnover line. So down to the product level, down to the branch level, and as I mentioned previously, down to the delivery type. So whether it's going to a central depot or whether it's going to a branch. We can really work on any attribute of the turnover line from which you want to agree a deal. And so some of the more exotic examples we've seen is customer accounts, whether you're a buying group or whether your customers are potentially multiple entities within a larger umbrella organisation. You may, for example, have other agreements with some of those organisations, but you still want an agreement with the umbrella organisations, and so you need to make sure that you're not paying potentially twice across multiple deals. And so you can say these customer accounts as part of this deal are eligible, and these ones aren't, for example. The other thing we see is promotions as well, so promotions that are applied at the point of sale. So 3 for 2 offers, for example. We see lots of our customers want to support those deals when they're in the retailer, and so if that promotion can be flagged at the point of sale, we can actually track that as part of the data coming in and create deals based on these promotions.
So Phil, then what are the problems of having non-granular data?
So some of our clients just don't have access to the data. So that if they're reliant on their suppliers getting the data or their trading partners to supply that data, it's stuck at a level that they're not familiar with, or it's just not granular and they can't agree the deals that they want to see. Some clients actually do have the data, but it's locked in an ERP system. We see lots of clients that don't have confidence in their purchases data for whatever reason, and so they continue to rely on their supplier data. And the issue with that is you get very minor variances in how you would calculate rebate. And this can be a couple of pounds or a couple of dollars on each transaction, but this suddenly kind of grows to quite a large variance over time. And at the end of the deal, where you're potentially settling things up, you can come up to large variances where you've calculated the deal entirely differently, and you need to reconcile this somehow. You need to agree with your trading partner exactly what's going to happen. And that can affect your relationship with your trading partner. And we see rebates as a way of really cooperating more closely with the businesses that you trade with, and we don't want to see too much competition.
Absolutely. How can granularity help maximise those deals and improve those supplier relationships you just mentioned?
So first off, it's just a better way of calculating rebate. Using the most granular data you can find, you're going to get better accuracy in those rebate calculations. We've worked with clients that have just switched to using granular data, and they've found additional revenue in their existing deal structure. So they haven't renegotiated those deals, they haven't used any of the more complex deal types that I've mentioned earlier, but they've actually, just by going back to the proper data source, they've actually found lost revenue in those deals and be able to get some more cash into the business. It's also about just knowing the true cost of a product, and so a lot of our clients' competitive advantage is actually found within that rebate, and without knowing the true cost of that, you don't know how much you can discount that at the point of sale to win the business. You've just got no visibility to be able to do that while still retaining some margin, and so we see some of our customers add add additional costs on when they pass it down to the branch level to insulate from that, where really they should be able to know the true cost of the product using their data. And I guess it's also about up-to-date reporting. So if you're not aggregating month by month, you can get to-the-minute reporting on how you are through your deals, whether you're going to hit certain targets, especially nearing deal end. What purchasing decisions can you make to ensure a better rate of return? Are you going to hit those targets? What do you need to spend? And potentially what are you missing out on if you don't make those decisions?
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a lot of benefits to having granular data. How would different areas of the business use granular data to help with their business strategy?
So I guess a lot of our clients like to reward branches for making better purchasing decisions. And so breaking that down by branch level is really crucial to them. They want to incentivize branch managers to make better purchasing decisions, to get deals that come through on the central depot, and just for products that have the best rebate and the best potential rebate if those targets are hit. So being able to break it down by branch level surfaces that information and gives those branch managers the information they need to make those better purchasing decisions. It's about accruing for rebate as well. And so if you know exactly where you are in the rebate deal, you can accrue more accurately. And so you're not going to get so many peaks and troughs. It's going to be nicely smooth throughout the year, and you won't have large amounts of cash to reconcile at the end of the reporting period as well.
Always good to know. So we've just talked about what granularity is. Do we generally see granularity with some of our clients or businesses?
Typically not. We see our customers either working on spreadsheets, and so it's very aggregated data, looking at product categories, looking at months aggregated as one, and not going down to the branch level. And this is really the level of complexity that can be handled by spreadsheets. Some of our clients are working with granular data, but they're putting it into legacy rebate systems where you don't have the flexibility to agree some of the deals that you want to do. They typically don't support the more incentive mechanisms that we're used to seeing. And they're very stuck and very rigid in their ways, and there's no real flexibility for the buyers to come up with a deal that really works for both parties.
Yeah, okay. So Phil, there's lots of benefits to having granular data across all areas of a business. How would an organisation go about getting granular data?
So firstly, it's about looking at what data you've got access to. So potentially looking at the source systems where that data originates from before it's aggregated. So can you go back to your ERP system? Can you go back to your POS system? Get the raw data and start working with that. Some of our customers have some issues with the accuracy of that data. It's all about looking at how you can actually increase your confidence with that data. Is there some steps that you can take to look at that data and get some better accuracy and some better confidence behind it? Then it's about looking at that granular data. Does it help maximize the revenue generated from some of these deals, or is it a more fair way of calculating the rebate for some of these deals? And then when it come renegotiation time, does this data tell me more about the deal? Are we getting the right rate for this deal? Is there a better way to renegotiate this deal? Does it work better in a different deal structure? But these are the kind of tools that are surfaced in DealTrack. So this is kind of the natural process of DealTrack. And so you need some of these tools that can give you a better intelligence about these deals. And working with the granular data, it just adds more and more intelligence.
That's great. Thank you, Phil. So now let's take a look at some questions. So our first question from our audience member is, I like the idea, but we don't have time to look at this right now because we have other business priorities. How easy do we do this?
So I think first off, we can help. This is a challenge that our customers face time and time again. When they're starting to use DealTrack, it's part of our normal onboarding process to look at their data. And so we've got sort of experts there that can help look at your ERP systems, look at the data that's being extracted currently, and really work with you to improve the quality of that, and look at how we can make that more granular and use DealTrack to really solve some of those rebate issues you have.
Okay, great stuff. So hopefully that answers the question. Our second question is, we talked about client data earlier, and we've had a question that says, what does our data need to look like to begin with?
Absolutely anything. we've been talking about the benefits of using granular data, but we don't just use exclusively granular data. DealTrack works wonderfully with non-granular or aggregated data, and potentially you can just get the ball rolling with aggregated data and potentially look at on a supplier by supplier basis or a customer by customer basis, really looking to provide that extra level of granularity in that data, start seeing some improvements with that supplier, and then work through the rest of your suppliers just to improve the quality of the data that you're using.
So is that generally done over time, or is it a fairly instant process?
It depends on the client. We've worked on sort of big bang implementations where clients have used DealTrack to really look at improve the quality of the data as a kind of reason we need to have some accuracy and some assurance in this data. But we've also worked with clients where we've taken it, used what they have, and sort of worked with them over a longer period of time to improve the granularity of the data that they're using.
That's great stuff. So a bit more of a data journey.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and we have time for one last question. And the question is, I can only get my data from specific supplier portals. How would you go about getting this to be more granular?
Okay, so this is where your suppliers have provided you access to the purchases you've made with them, potentially through a web application. So rather than just on email, you're logging into a web application, you're downloading data from, say, the last month, and then you can start using that data to look at the rebate earned, or some suppliers actually provide that information about the rebate earned through the supplier portal. And say, firstly, I'd say, work with those suppliers, maybe ask those suppliers whether they can provide more granular data through the supplier portal. We've worked with customers and kind of prompted them to start those conversations with their suppliers, and they've actually been successful in getting that more granular data through the existing supplier portal. Their suppliers were more than happy to do this for them. It's less processing on them, and they were seeing a sort of more parity between the calculations both parties had made. I'd also say look at your existing data, look at why some of the reasons why you might not have confidence in that data. Try and potentially resolve some of those issues. If there's multiple systems, how do you have one source of the truth? Potentially look at how you or when purchases are invoiced, and start looking at resolving some of those issues. And the more confidence you have in that data, you can then start using it in your existing rebate deals and seeing potentially some lost revenue.
That's great. Thank you very much, Phil. Hopefully we've answered your questions, and if you've got any more questions, please do feel free to get in touch. And don't forget to follow us on our social media channels such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and give us a like, and go back and watch our previous webinars. So it sounds like granular data is always something to consider for the future, but your first priority will always be to manage and execute those complex deals well. But if you are looking to maximize your earnings from those complex rebate deals, granular data is something you should definitely consider for the future. So I want to thank you, Phil, for today's webinar. And if you're interested in finding out how granular data can help you maximize those earnings, please do get in touch. And we look forward to seeing you next time.